never criticise the mighty Miss Rowling. But I'm allowed to criticise Robert Galbraith, right? The Silkworm is the second in J.K. Rowling's pseudonymously penned crime thrillers. It follows on from The Cuckoo's Calling, the novel that shocked readers and reviewers alike when it was revealed to share an author with a certain scarred boy wizard. If you haven't seen my review for the first, do go check it out here. In The Silkworm, Leonora Quine hires Cormoran Strike, our once struggling but post the solve of the famous Lula Landry case no longer completely at rock bottom detective, to find her missing husband. Owen Quine published one vaguely well thought of novel many years ago, and has ever since been trying to write anything that will live up to it, let alone top it. Leonora thinks her husband has just stormed off. It wouldn't be the first time he's disappeared for days just to turn up later in a St. John's Wood hotel. But Leonora needs him to come home now. She's struggling to look after their disabled daughter. Money has run low, and if he could just stop having a writer's crisis and come back, that would be great. Cormoran, against his much better judgment, the woman doesn't look like she can afford his fee and definitely tips the scale on the more eccentric side of sanity, agrees to take the case, figuring it'll just involve half a dozen phone calls and maybe storming a writer's retreat. But before he knows it, he's stumbled not upon a skulking, reclusive Quine, but his body, posed in the exact manner of the murder victim of his latest, soon-to-be-published novel. Without meaning to, Cormoran has yet again walked right into the middle of a murder. Using the late Quine's unfinished script, he attempts to track down who might have done this to the author, only to find that almost everyone Owen knew is slandered in this latest work. The further and further he delves, the more and more suspects there seem to be, and Cormoran must find which of them finally brought Owen down, before they decide someone else needs to join him. So I'm generally fond of Rowling's dagger-clutching jaunts down dimly lit alleyways, and a big reason is the twists. Our fake Galbraith is very good at directing your attention to Professor Plum in the dungeons with the wand, before pulling down the curtain and revealing that was only a tiny part of a huge picture you couldn't possibly have divined. It's a brilliant trick for a whodunit, being able to hide information as you reveal it. Rowling will talk about characters, and you think it's just exposition. They've earned their place in the narrative because they're worthy of note, because they're funny, because they wear slippers on their hands, which fly off as they postulate wildly. But they're not always just window dressing. Sometimes slippers are just slippers. Sometimes they're there to beg the question as to where the oven gloves have disappeared off to. Sometimes our Rowling is unbeknownst but to the shrewdest of Ravenclaws, doling out that information which is vital to the solve. Footnote 1. Stevie, if the most ingenious of clues you can possibly come up with is blood-stained oven gloves, you possibly don't have a career as a crime novelist waiting in the wings for you. Unless all your murders take place on the set of the Great British Bake Off. We'll now return to our regularly scheduled review, and the dislikes, and this, I'm afraid, is a big one. I actually found The Silkworm a bit sexist. It was much less equal across gender than the previous Cuckoo's Calling. I at least felt the split between Cormoran and Robin's point of views were much less equal. There was simply more from his point of view than from hers, and what there was from her point of view just didn't really seem as important. Beyond that, the other female characters portrayed, they just weren't great. Cormoran's ex-girlfriend Charlotte, in being this beautiful yet crazy figure, is moving off into the manic pixie dream girl trope. Also, something that's becoming slightly more obvious now as Book 2 battles its final endplate are the beautiful young women who throw themselves at Cormoran, only to become undesirable once attained or attainable. It just seems to harken back to some sort of 18th century notion of the female, needing to be pure and sylph-like, only wanted by men when they can't be got. On the other hand, when not necessarily sexualised, for instance, generally, the older women written about, there's a high level of caricature to them, and not really much else. Batty, scatty and eccentric. Even Owen's agent, Liz Tassel, who's meant to be a dragon of a woman, even she fits this stereotype more often than not. I will finally say it was interesting to have a novel set in the world of publishing. Did J.K. Rowling think it's safe, now that she's been discovered and the storyline established, for her to play in a field she knows well? You think it would be an intriguing little insight for us bookish lot, to peer in through a slight window into that world where elves make our treasures. But in reality, the literary attitudes of a lot of the characters were kind of upsetting and off-putting. I did wonder though if J.K. Rowling was poking fun at some elements of it, for instance making everything in a male writer's work a metaphor for masturbation. So to conclude, I found this novel a real mix. I thought the tension was up in this gorier instalment, the plot was really strong and the main duo still really likeable, but elements of it, and above all I guess what you call the feminist reading, really jarred with me. I am definitely going to read the next one, but I kind of hope it's closer to our initial instalment. And I'd like to place an order right now. I'd like more of Robin being a badass, thank you very much. Tell me if you guys have read Rowling's crime books, I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say. Maybe I'm the only one who thought they were a little marred with insidious sexism. Let's talk in the comments. Other than that, I will see you in my video on Monday. Bye guys.